Well, hello, and thanks for joining me today. My name is Jimmy P. Brown II, aka JPBII, and you have tuned into a deep dive of River Disturbance. Stay tuned. Well, hello, all you listeners, viewers, and what is the old thing I used to always say? Facebookers and all other onlookers. YouTubers, Facebookers, and all other onlookers. There you go. This is Jimmy P. Brown II. I'm so glad to be joining you today and that you're joining me. If you're tuning in, this is a deep dive. This is something that came in as a request from my Patreon years ago, actually, and I just recalled it and decided to do this because people want to know the insights of what makes a record tick, and this is probably Deliverance's most mysterious and misunderstood records. And so we're going to be doing a deep dive into the River Disturbance album today. Many of you that follow Deliverance know that all the backstories behind it. So I won't dive too much into that. I'd rather just do a blow-by-blow with each song and kind of give you an idea what was going through my head when writing. And then we'll just kind of go from there, and I'll give you some thoughts at the end. And there you go. So let's dive in, shall we? The first track is called Belltown.
By day I hear the screams of a compromising scene as the wailing wall ringing the waves back through time. What kind of idea has been planted in the mind when stealing babies and killing your folks on your spots on prime time? There we go! One more time. There we go. And I ask, is this right to anyone who would hear? Is it something I missed or was not so? And life goes on in Belltown. The needle finds it.
All right. Well, nothing says hello and we're here to say something than 4 hi-hat crashes going into the song. Boy, I mean, I remember when we first did that and Knox, did that. We were just actually going to start the song with just the guitars, but it just sounded so cool with that 4 count on the hi-hats. And, but yeah, so Belltown. So a lot of people have asked, what is Belltown about? Is it real? Is it fictional? Is it, And no, I lived in a city called Bellflower, California, and spent most of my teenage years there. We had moved there when I was 14 years old. Otherwise, I grew up in Southgate, California. And now, Belltown wasn't gang-ridden and completely super-duper ghetto, although it had its parts of the town that were pretty super-duper ghetto. And I happened to live in one of them. Where my parents lived and everything was a lot nicer, where they had a house. But when it came down to me affording my own place and be able to live, we settled in at an apartment house on 15312 Bellflower Boulevard. And we were there for, oh goodness, about 3-4 years until we moved. And so when I was writing, I began writing for the River Disturbance album there at the 15312 address. And I was just writing now from this point, as from Stave Execution on, I was challenged by Terry to just, write from the heart, be more metaphorical in your approach. And if you are going to be literal and you're going to, definitely still approach it the way you like to write poetry. Because Terry had read through a lot of my poetry and liked it and said, this is the kind of style you need to go to when writing your lyrics. So Belltown, where we lived, just seemingly looked like a tiny little apartment house with 8 apartments and in the back a washroom, but or the washing machine room. There was 2 washers, 2 dryers, and our apartment managers were really cool. They were really nice, and they lived on site. And yeah, it was a fun place because we all because it being so small, we all knew each other, but. In the alleyway is where a lot of stuff happened. As far as people shooting up and gangland killings and all sorts of things, So I'd gotten to know a lot of the gangbangers in the area because a few of them lived in our apartment complex and apartment complexes around, and talked with all of them. And they were, a lot of them were actually very, very nice. You had no idea that you were, talking to a killer, and when you actually talked to them. So, but stuff like that was just happening on the norm every single day, and I just wrote about it because it was crazy, and it eventually led us to move and I'll get into that a little bit. But that's is it based on true events? Absolutely. Everything, I just didn't mention names or anything like that. But yeah, all that stuff that happened in the alleyway behind our apartment complex. It was crazy. It was all real, very much. And we didn't even live in the worst part of Bellflower. It was kind of the second worst, but it wasn't the worst. There were other streets that, you knew not to drive down. You knew not to accidentally walk upon. But our area was gaining, that's for sure. But yeah, all based on just events that were happening there, especially one event that had happened where a guy was murdered, shot dead. And I'll never forget, going and standing behind the police tape and seeing everything that's happening, and telling my daughter stay in the apartment, stay upstairs. I went down to go see what was going on, and yeah, it's just crazy. And then a few neighbors there that were addicted to H, and leave their kids, just toss them out, so they could stay in their apartments and shoot up. It's definitely a strange way of living. And so I just wrote about the surreal events that we were living in, and that was my approach on Belltown. After I Fell, what a great song. We wanted to do something different. And I remembered when John Maddox had brought me the demo of a couple of the parts for that song. And oddly enough, it sounded a lot like the demos he gave me sounded a lot like I Will Follow by U2. And you could still hear it. You still hear the melody in there. If you listen to that whole beginning, you can sing along. If you walk away, I will follow. It'll go right with it. But we just changed it up a little and made some different things, and then I had to write the verses around what I was doing as far as lyrically. So, but man, the song came out great, and lyrically, my approach here was it was more than just introspective. It was almost just penning my diary of the way I was feeling about some things that had gone down and happened in my personal life. So when I say I walked the lonely beach, as the sun sets slowly, that's real. I remember going down to Belmont Shores and just going onto the beach and just walking and just walking by myself and listening to the ocean hit the sands and just recollecting everything that I felt, just of these wrongs that I'd done, and just feeling a wave of forgiveness just wash over. And but it's definitely one of these songs that has a very repentant, very just a recollecting and feeling a little overwhelmed about mistakes you'd made, things that had been done. I love that line, take me as far as the east is from the west, plunge me into your sea of forgetfulness. And that was definitely what I was feeling at that time. So very personal song. Musically speaking, it was definitely a takeoff for us. I remember John wanting to experiment and play the bongos, and so he played this little bongo thing to go with that the main drum beat, and it just sounded so great. And that's when we started experimenting with a lot of multi-layer guitars happening, and just sounded so cool and very enjoyable listen. And I'll never forget when Terry at the end said, you got to do something different with what you're doing on the vocal, and I kidded with him and said, oh, do you want me to do a Frankie Valli high falsetto thing? And he was like, yeah, let's try it, and we did it and tracked it like 2 or 3 times, and it just sounded cool. So we left it, just a cool vibe altogether. Let's take a listen to River Disturbance. Well, the title track, lots going on there. Obviously, I'm only playing small excerpts from the songs, but man, there's so much going on there musically, and it's really great. Just had so much fun doing and recording this record. I also remember Terry on the Doppelganger album referencing the same thing. Saying collected by the shores of the River Disturbance. So I just took the idea of there because, what life is. Life can be a river of disturbance. Because remember what a river is. I mean, you stumble upon a river and you just go, oh my gosh, this is magnificent. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's peaceful. but you can get into that river and be swept away by the water, and especially if the current's real high, and it could just take you and just pummel you over rocks and even kill you. Water is very, very powerful, and certainly not to be messed with. And that just reminded me of life. Life is just, it's like a river, and the river disturbance. And I love that analogy of just, even through this river disturbance, being carried away by the shore, by the shoreline and everything, you could still find peace inside of everything that's happening in your life. The opening line, the heavens can't contain you and the earth is your footstool. Immediate recognition of what and who God is. And then from dust I was created, and to it I will return. Immediate recognition of who I am and what I am. And then the second verse I really, really like. I love the line stated, my mind it cannot fathom God nailed to a tree. That was what I was attempting to do lyrically, was paint pictures. Terry had challenged me to always paint a picture, visual with, and you can do that with your music, and the music itself can paint a picture, but use your lyrics to do the same. And that was exactly what I did with River Disturbance, and just talking about how through that thing, I hear you calling me, I hear you in the flood. I hear you calling me right now. And, just finding that peace in a time of disturbance. Let's listen to a little bit of Now and Then.
I hear myself say the words of how life's unfair. It's come to points where I don't care. My nights are familiar with the words. Like a story told by a child who does not know. Close your eyes and listen to the words with them from those whose innocence was told. Tales told from days of old, now and then. A feeble cry, a teary eye, now and then. No one knows.
Well, this was the first track that's just all acoustic guitar that was ever done on a Deliverance record. But then it's just backed up by that ferocious bass line and drum beats of John Knox and Manny Morales together. And you can almost feel the rock element. It's just all acoustic guitars, and it was me just playing my 12 strings. The song's very personal for me. I'd gone to my parents' house, and more than likely probably just stopped to eat because my mom was a great cook, and but nobody was home. And I started peering around the house, and I walked into my dad's den, and where he was, and he was just sitting there. He hadn't responded when I was calling out, "Is anybody home?" And he was just there, and he was thinking. And my dad always was a thinker. He used to just sit and twiddle his thumbs, and but that day he wasn't twiddling his thumbs. He had he was just very somber. And he was thinking, and when he turned, he was shocked that I was there, because I said, "Dad," and he turned and looked at me with those big blue eyes of his, and I could see one of them welled up, and I don't know what my dad was thinking, and I tried to get it out of him, and he just didn't tell me, he just all of a sudden became that gruff exterior of who my father was, and I could tell it was that, you're a baby, you don't understand, And I just remember feeling it, and then my dad used to write notes and stuff, and so I scurried there a couple days later and looked around and just seeing things that if I could find anything, any notes taken or anything. And yeah, just, I remember feeling just so sad. And, that whatever my dad was feeling, he was keeping it all to himself. He was hiding it all inside. And I penned a song about it. And that was just about that experience of stumbling upon my father in deep thought. And because that's life, tales told from days of old, of now and then, a feeble cry, a tearing eye from now and then. And so it's a very personal song, yeah, about just that moment, that tiny little moment that I'll never forget. So that was Speed of Light. Speed of Light. What a fantastic song. I love everything about it. That it just has this this vibe, this feel. But I was reading a lot, as I still do. I read this book that I haven't been able to find since I left St. Louis, and it was called Speed of Light, and it was a loosely based on reality, fictionalized account of Albert Einstein, based on some of his memoirs and some notes from his journals and everything else about, his obsession with his own discovery and of relativity, and he just became obsessed with the speed of light and realized that if we are being as that Albert was a spiritual man of sorts. Seeing that he realized that if we are light beings and our spirits are light beings, then they travel the speed of light. They can travel that 186,000 miles per second, and realize that the only way to achieve it is shedding this mortal coil. And of course, not based on real events, but I thought it was quite amazing, and the idea behind it. And so I just kind of wrote the lyrics based on that idea of speed of light. So when people, asked me, so I mean, are you questioning whether, heaven and hell exist or whatever? No, I'm coming at it from the mind of Einstein, drawing back from childhood fantasies of living life on Mars. Of course, that's me. But, is it possible to go to heaven or hell? I might never know or live to tell. That's from the person's perspective who's wanting to experience traveling the speed of light.
Oh, what a trip when it comes swift, driven to the state of tranquility, but my curtains a fallacy. Both of idiocy, hope gonna spray, can't find it, no relief in the morning as I wait, begging for a string, cling to the bottom. How much deeper does it bring? From the depths of slumber, the sunken job hunkers for a soul. Black is twisty, sunken black hole, clip from the backside. Blind side is my pain. Whoa, agony to catch or come. I show no shame. I keep the unknown. I draw the game. I'm picture frame. I can't get away, can't go on. I'm sleeping, I'm gone. Where do we go?
So A Little Sleep, boy, this song probably got the worst abuse out of it because it was the rap metal thing, you know. And this is '94. It wasn't extremely common yet, and I certainly wasn't going to attempt to rap it. The funny thing is, we had actually contacted the people who were the guys that were doing our security for us, which was a group called the Gospel Gangstas, and they were from Compton and South Central, and I just love these guys. And like I said, they were doing our security, and then they put out an album called Gang Affiliated, which just sold like gangbusters, and they were going to come in. They were slated to do it. But now 12th Tribe, I'd been working with a lot of hip hop bands. I'd been working with SFC and Dynamic Twins and 12th Tribe. And 12th Tribe had gotten dropped from their label. And now we were with a new label. So they were trying to get a record deal, and they asked as a favor, you know, hey, this could be a jumping point for us if we had this to present, because we want to do like a rock rap thing. So, you know, reluctantly, I did it. I did it more out of friendship. And so I called the gangstas and told them, you know, stand down. I'm going to do it with 12th Tribe. And they were cool about it. But still got a lot of crap about it, and it's okay. I think it was just a moment in time. It was a wonderful collaboration. John Knox had, you know, he tinkered around with the guitar, and he wrote that riff, the main riff for the chorus, that down, but down, no down, no down. And Maddox had written a part, and I had written a part, and so it just all kind of came together. And it was just fun collaboration with the 12th Tribe guys, and we enjoyed ourselves. We had a lot of fun with it, but nonetheless, people hated it, called us sellouts, and you know, oh, you're trying to change genres or whatever. And it's like, we already did in '92 or '92 with the release of Stay, but whatever. It is what it is. Now let's talk about the most controversial song on there, and let's listen to a little excerpt from Map. I think what amazes me most about Map is all the hate that the song got, but it was like, you guys already saw where I was going mentally, and or not mentally, but lyrically and musical approach. So Map shouldn't have been a surprise. It was a quirky adaptation of an idea, because this was Deliverance's biggest budget ever, and there was a budget in there for a video, and I wanted to do a video for Map because it was the first time in my head that I saw something visually, and I was going to be a TV preacher online or on TV selling these road maps to heaven, and then they fold out and it's just a big, you know, bunch of crosses. It was more of a fun idea. It was just quirky. It was just, and that's what it was meant to be. But it was like nobody got it. And I just didn't understand how no one could get it. It's just a quirky, fun song. Wasn't meant to be taken serious. You know, all the odd harmonies and chromatic harmonies and all these spooky things happening with the vocals everywhere. It was, I mean, you listen to that song at headphones, it's fantastic. But yeah, if you just like got it for a few seconds, you'd understand. But is what it is.
So forgiveness flowed when I do you wrong. How I wish I could undo it all. But through it all, you still smile. And we haven't seen light for a while. Promise me one thing, that through it all, you'll still smile.
You know, the thing that's the most touching about this song, I worked really, really hard on this song. And, you know, with the choral and, you know, big choir effect and Gene's magnificent piano playing and the orchestra sounds, the strings, everything, you know, it was just a lot of work went into making this song what it was. And I wanted it to be a fitting tribute to my wife, Helen. And who had just always been there, and her smile is what always got me there. And I wanted it to be a fitting tribute. But all these years later, when me and Helen read emails from from fans that have used it for their wedding march, have used it for their first dance, have used it for their 10-year anniversary, since I mentioned in the song, you know, 10 years later, you know, you still smile. You know, here it is for me 35 years later, and that smile still gets me through. But seeing how much it actually touched so many people, yeah, it was worth every bit of time that went into making that song what it was. So really appreciate it, and I'm glad that people love it and appreciated it, and they got it, they understood.
She might be, but then she tricks you like some ghostly clown. The wind names whoever she wills, haunting me. I hear her breathing still. I hear her breathing still. Is she a messenger sent from God, blowing away all of our wrongs? The Almighty waves His arm, having an attendant to our cause. Echoing voices play in my head. I feel nothing left but you.
So breathing still. I had this painting of this Indian girl. It had like a big close up of the moon and this little thing of a couple of wolves and but it was this beautiful Indian girl. And again, it was just a painting, and it hung in my studio, and I would just stare at it. And one day when staring at it, I just wrote this poem, and I wrote this poem called Breathing Still, because I had named her Breathing Still for whatever reason. You know, I was thinking of a cool Indian name, you know, dances with the wolves, stands with the fists, blah, 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 you know, it was like, you know, kicking bird. So I called her Breathing Still. Don't know why, just did. And, I ended up penning this poem, showed it to Terry. We submitted it for a contest. It won for a poetry contest. I didn't win anything. I think a $10 check and some other goofy prizes. I think a bag of pens or something, but and a certificate, of course. But I just loved that they got it. They connected to it. And, I took a lot of liberty, and I took a license with the idea of what breathing still was to me. And so it's kind of a love song to the wind, and how the wind is just very vital. If you read in scriptures, wind is always mentioned, howling wind, rushing wind, and the Spirit of God rode on wind. And it's mentioned so much when, when Elisha was taken up, or Elijah was taken up, it was, this rushing wind. So it was just kind of a poetic take on wind. And she just kind of, that painting, that girl breathing still, was the inspiration of writing that poem. And it wasn't actually supposed to be the song. I'd written the song, we recorded it, and I just remember Terry, saying, we need to use Breathing Still. This is the song. And I'm like, no, let's, I've got other lyrics. And he's like, no, this is Breathing Still. Let's make it work. And I was already struggling with how I was going to sing on it and everything else. But the cadence came. And everything just fell into place, and I couldn't hear that song as anything else but Breathing Still now. So it's pretty awesome. I'm super stoked. That's by and far, my most favorite song on the record. I just think it's heavy, punchy, beautiful. Poetry come to life for me in music form. So I really, really do love that song. So final thoughts on River Disturbance. It's funny. The patron that gave me the idea for a deep dive sent me a video of someone doing a deep dive on one of my favorite Bowie albums. And he sent me a YouTube link, and I watched it. And now his commentary was what kind of sparked all of this, because he said, how could you do a deep dive without knowing what the artist actually thought? Because this guy's just assuming everything. He's kind of going off of interviews and all this pieced together information over the years about these albums, and he's just kind of hypothesizing everything. But none of it's actual factual. Actual factual. He's just assuming everything. So if you were to do a deep dive of your records, it would make more sense because it's coming from the guy who wrote it. So it's like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. So the reason I started with River Disturbance is because it is the most misunderstood album. For a while, it was the most controversial. It maybe still is to some degree. A lot of people do know Belltown. And, it's a concert favorite every time we play it. People are singing along, and, it's great. But so diehard D fans get it. And when we toured, we were afraid of going on tour because of all the hate mail we received for that album. And it's pre-email, pre-internet, pre-Facebook. We got letters, people writing letters, licking stamps, putting it into folding it, putting it into an envelope, licking the envelope, putting a stamp on it and sending it, to let you know how much they hate this album. And it's like, we were a little afraid until we actually went out, and it was the most successful tour of our career. The Spring Fling tour and the Winter Fling tour did great, but not as well as Spring Fling. And that was completely in support of the River Disturbance album. And, suits and all. But, yeah, man. The sad part was it only had a limited run because the label was defunct. Word had dropped the whole thing. It was kind of unfortunate, but then it found a cult following. And before it was reissued, original Brainstorm release CDs were on eBay for 75, $100. I even saw one for 150. I bought one for $75. It was in rough shape, but I wanted it because I didn't have it anymore. And because, I always gave away stuff because thinking, oh, there's an endless supply. I'll get it again. But yeah, it's just one of those albums that you got to give it a chance. You have to get off your metal high horse and really give it a chance, because if you can't hear all the heaviness, that Mesa Boogie crunch, and the power that's in these songs, it's hard for me doing a deep dive to sit here and like praise my own material, because the last thing I do is do that. When I finish a record, I don't listen to it. I don't listen to it for years. And part of it is because I just, I am sick of it, because, usually by the time you're done working on an album, you've heard everything 2 million times. But no, I remember very distinctly just all the hate about it, and I couldn't understand why, because it's super heavy. There's elements of clean all over the place. It's just, it's a journey. It's a musical journey. People are saying that about the new Novella 2, that it's a musical journey. River Disturbance was my first attempt to take you on a musical journey and let you just close your eyes and visually put, your own visuals to these very personal songs, these very personal lyrics. So when people ask, why is it your favorite record? I think my going through each song will help you understand why it's my favorite. And then when you go into the sonics and you understand, Gene Eugene said, I don't want to put any external EQ on this. I want to try to do everything with just mic placement and compression. And he did. And man, I mean, just the sonics of the record, how great it sounds. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much to it. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There were moments that just felt like there were angelic beings and they're guiding the sessions. It was just so real and so beautiful. And to have people write it off because it's not thrash, or it's not this, or it's not that, it's really terribly, yeah. I could say a lot of rude and mean things. I just won't. I'll say this: get off your metal high horse or your thrash high horse or whatever it is that you hold to yourself, and give the record a chance, because it really is a very moving and emotive record, and it still is my favorite of the entire Deliverance catalog. It's still my favorite album because it was just very, very heartfelt from start to finish. And I hope this deep dive kind of helped give you a little insight of what's going on. The album was re-released, but it was remastered and put out, re-released by Retroactive Records, Matt Hunt over at Retro. So there's a link to Boone's Overstock, and go check it out. It's in the description, but check it out, man, and go see everything Jimmy Brown, everything Deliverance. It's all there. So come by and visit and get it on vinyl, get it on CD, and immerse yourself. Everything on there: Jimmy Brown, Jupiter 6, Fearful Symmetry. The only thing that's not on there are the novellas, which you can get here at this website, www.jpbii.com. And if you join this website, patreon.com/JPBII, you get Novella for free, not only digitally, but you get a free CD if you're a $5 member and above. So not bad for less than the price of a cup of coffee from Starbucks, man. You can get yourself all the novellas, because part 1 and part 2 are already out, and part 3 and 4 are coming. And a lot more stuff's in the works too. So either way, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you coming by and stopping for a visit, and hope you enjoyed this deep dive of River Disturbance. And well, if you liked it, please give this video a thumbs up to let me know you liked it, so that way I'll keep making these little deep dives on all the different records that Deliverance has put out, and even Jupiter 6, Fearful Symmetry. I'll whatever you'd like me to do. Always try to facilitate. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Labor Day weekend, and whatever it is you're doing. And if you're outside of this country and you don't know what Labor Day is, it's all good. You just have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we will see you very soon. You're going to see a quick list running up right now of my patrons. And I want to say thank you very much for being a patron of JPBII. And we'll see you on the next deep dive.